Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. In this video, I will be running through the stats, strengths, and weaknesses of all of the Tier 2 rifle variants in Hunt Showdown. So what is a Tier 2 rifle? There are two base weapons that we're going to be looking at, then we're going to go through all of their variants. So we have the Winfield M1873, the Winfield M1873 Aperture, the Winfield M1873 Talon, and the Winfield M1873 Swift. Then we have the much heavier Lebel 1886, with its variants being the Lebel 1886 Talon and the Lebel 1886 Marksman. You can find timestamps for each of these weapons in the descriptions, so let's get stuck right in. If you watched our review of Tier 1 rifles, then this should be pretty familiar, because the Winfield M1873 is extremely similar to the compact version that you unlock at rank 1. This repeating rifle that fires compact ammo will deal 85 damage to the upper chest at a 10 meter range. This means up close it is a consistent 2-shot kill on full health hunters. The range drop off on this damage is significant however, and as you get further away the weapon becomes less effective at hurting your target. Once you exceed 67 meters, you will no longer be able to drop a full health hunter with a single headshot. The weapon has a muzzle velocity of 400 meters per second. Now while this is okay compared to the pistols you find at Tier 1, as a Tier 2 hunter this weapon is a bit on the low side of muzzle velocity, meaning that you have to be aware to lead your shots at longer range. An upside here is that the weapon's fire rate is quite high, at 50 rounds per minute uninterrupted. So how does the weapon differ from the basic Winfield C from Tier 1? Well, essentially it gives you double the magazine capacity, allowing you to hold 15 shots in an internal magazine, plus 1 in the chamber, but only with 20 in reserve. This is all compact ammo by the way. It also costs 75 Hunt dollars, and has an extremely minor handling reduction. So with those stats in mind, is this weapon any good? Well, it is a weaker gun than most other rifles, and it's not super cheap at only $30 cheaper than the medium ammo carabiner. But regardless, it does have a lot of strengths. The fire rate makes it pretty deadly up close. When you're very near your target, all rifles will kill in 2 shots to the chest, and then the Winfield will just do it faster because it has a higher fire rate. It has nice sights, and a fire rate combined with ammo abundance means that you can keep on shooting to either fish for headshots or keep suppressing fire on enemies while you or your team repositions. The volume of fire capacity of this weapon is often underrated. Because you have 16 bullets to play with before you reload, you can suppress multiple positions at the same time, dispatch AI easily if they begin to cause a problem during a fight, or hit barrels and lanterns for environmental advantage without losing valuable ammunition. That being said, anything other than headshots at long range will only tickle your opponents. It's hard to give a verdict on the Winfield, as some players swear by it, others claim it's nothing but garbage, and you really have to make your own decision. It can compete with the best weapons in the game provided that you are aware of its limitations, but rarely will holding a Winnie place you at a great advantage in a fight. So do the Winfield's variants make any major difference? The Winfield Aperture at $80 is more or less identical, and it comes with an aperture sight that gives you strong zoom, however it blurs most of your vision except for a tiny area that you are aiming at. It also hinders you with a slight, but noticeable reduction to handling. As with all sighted variants, whether you like them or not is ultimately going to be a matter of personal preference. But I can confidently state that if you like the Winfield Aperture, you are part of a very small minority. The sight is loathed by most hunters, and it is often considered a straight up downgrade from the normal iron sights. After all, the Aperture sight's whole original purpose in the game as a sight was to make the Nitro Express harder to use, so to put it on a Winnie just makes that weapon, at least in my opinion, a terrible choice. The Winfield Talon is more interesting. It's $100, and not only does it have a very nice legendary skin available, but the handling reduction it suffers is unnoticeably small. What you get instead is a blade that allows you to strike at 120 damage heavy attack that deals rending damage, and as such it will cause bleed on enemy hunters. Talon attacks do have several strange characteristics that make them a bit awkward. Firstly, they don't have the same range as a bayonet lunge, but rather they swing in quite a wide arc. This can be great to kill 2 grunts in one swing, or hit a sidestepping hunter, but often it will just hit your partner if you're both fighting grunts or dogs in melee too close together. The Talon also takes a while to charge up your heavy attack, making it rather slow, and it also uses up a significant portion of your stamina, meaning that it is much worse overall against AI than say, the knife or even the dusters. Against players you are probably better off just shooting them a second time if they are that close, although you can one-shot to the head with a Talon strike. Taking the Talon will limit your ability to fight immolators, so if you do pack one, make sure you bring some dusters along as well, since the rifle heavy strike will set them on fire. So overall, should you take a Talon? Well, objectively speaking, it doesn't actually do its job as well as a dedicated melee tool, and it's not that great against hunters either, but in those few circumstances where up close in a panic and you need to whack someone for 120 damage plus bleed, it's going to be way more lethal than the 54 blunt damage on the standard Winfield. Plus that Talon blade on the end of your gun just looks really cool. Now the final variant of the Winnie that we're going to look at is the Winfield Swift. It clocks in at $128. This makes it rather expensive for a weapon with mostly the same stats as one of the tier 1 starter guns. The Swift does not lose any handling from the base weapon, and it's purely upgraded in the sense that it has a speed loader mechanism that you can use to halve the time it takes to fully reload the weapon. The loader can pop in 7 rounds at a time, so you will have to be at least 7 rounds empty when you start your reload to see it in action. But does this make a significant difference to how the gun functions? Well, if you love the Winfield, then this is kind of the ultimate form of the Winfield, allowing you to blast fire down range, and only pause briefly before resuming your hail of suppressing bullets. On the other hand, if it takes you 16 shots and you're still in combat with no chance to reload, are you really going to win that fight no matter how fast your gun reloads? So yes, the Swift is good, but it's definitely not an essential upgrade. Now that's enough for Winfield. Let's talk about one of the newer additions to the Hunt weapon roster, the Lebel 1886. Unlocking at rank 52, the $397 Lebel is a long ammo bolt action rifle that deals 132 damage to the chest up close, but it has a slow fire rate of 34 rounds per minute. To contrast with the Carabiner, which has similar damage but a much faster fire rate, the Lebel does have vastly increased range, able to headshot up to 250 meters like other long rifles. What makes this weapon really stand out is its projectile speed of 630 meters per second. This is the fastest bullet in the game, and it makes hitting those long range shots a fairly simple affair. The Lebel carries 10 rounds internally and 5 in reserve, however you will need bullet grubber not to lose a round upon reloading your weapon. The Lebel is another gun that splits opinions. Some people don't like it, saying that given its slow fire rate, reload and slightly lower damage, there is no reason to take it over the Mosin Nagant. Now whilst the Mosin is a more powerful weapon, I do really still like the Lebel. Having so many rounds in your magazine means you can keep firing and suppressing for much longer without having to reload at all. I don't find the fire rate too much of an issue either. After all, this is a long rifle, meaning it is supposed to be used from medium to long range, where you can pull back behind cover while cycling the bolt action. Now the Lebel damage is certainly high enough that in most fights, 2 chest shots will kill. However, if you are shooting from far away or hitting arms, then a 3rd shot may be needed. I would go for headshots when far away with this weapon. Another trick with the Lebel you can use is hot swapping to your sidearm to follow up after a shot if you make that initial hit, as this will be much faster than cycling the bolt action. The uppercut pairs really well here because it'll also increase your ammo reserves for long ammo. So with the base Lebel covered, what about its variants? First we have the Lebel Talon. This is the standard affair, a very minor handling reduction in exchange for a 120 damage rending melee attack. Everything mentioned for the Winnie Talon applies to the Lebel Talon. The slow swing charge up, the wide arc, high stamina consumption, the need to take dusters to deal with immolators, and so on. At $422 hunt dollars, is it worth it? Well, it'll give you an edge in one of those panicky fights against hunters, especially when you're out of ammo or after a missed shot. But then again, why are you that close with the Lebel out anyway? That's what sidearms with fanning are for. The final weapon to cover for tier 2 rifles is the Lebel Marksman. Now for $437, this medium magnification scope really does play into the strengths of the weapon. There is a small handling reduction, but it shouldn't be noticeable. Now, as I've said before, scopes and sights are a personal preference kind of thing, as they don't fundamentally change the capabilities of the weapon. However, I do think that this sight in particular on this weapon is a great combo. Unlike the Winfield Marksman, which doesn't seem to synergize very well at all, this scope allows you to easily make far-away headshots, capitalizing on the high range and projectile velocity of the Lebel, while still making close-range fights viable. This weapon really elevates the Lebel in my opinion, and it makes it one of the most effective killing machines in the game. as long as you aren't playing on a fog map where scopes are severely handicapped. So there we have all of the tier 2 rifles of Hunt Showdown. Soon we will cover the remaining rifles in tier 3, the Mosin Nagant and its many variants, along with the Nitro Express rifle. Please consider subscribing to stay tuned in for future videos, and you can also join us over on our Discord server or support us further on Patreon. Both are linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.